It's HPR, All Things Considered, and I'm Dave Lawrence, welcoming back a band with a long connection to the islands, America. We're catching up with co-founder Gerry Beckley today, who recently announced he was taking a break from touring and joins us as he's releasing his latest solo album, self-titled and including this tasty track, My Life.
It's my life. It's all you need to know. It's my life.
It's the return of America legend Gerry Beckley.
How you doing, Dave?
A big welcome back, my brother. Really appreciate you coming on. Now, what is your favorite song on it, Gerry, and why? Of all these tunes, there's a dozen of them.
Well, oh boy, probably the opening cut, My Life. Autobiographical story. You know, you obviously want to start an album with something you feel quite strong about.
And when it comes to the batch of tunes and when you were doing it, what's the time frame on because I know there's a little bit of a story on when some of this was put together.
Well, I've always been a guy that writes 10 to get 2 songs is the way I word it. What that explains is there's a backstory to that. It means the other 8 are not necessarily unusable. They might just not be finished. They might need a bridge or something. So it's a bit misleading when I sometimes say, oh, this song's been sitting around for 8 years or 10 years. It might have just been half a song that I never got around to finishing. One of the things about this album in particular is it's the first time that I really got to put together a record where I wasn't trying to squeeze it into Tuesdays, Wednesdays of my week, when I had such a busy touring schedule. And I found this time, kind of starting with COVID, frankly, but leading into, I don't know if you know, I've retired from the road at the end of last year.
Right.
It's really given me time to focus on a tune and not have to set it down for weeks and then go back to it and stuff.
What's the missus think of it?
She likes it. We split our time between Sydney and Venice, California, as you know, and I have studios in both places. I am more often there, maybe not always, but because often she's there. But when I'm in Sydney, she's clearly always here, so she has to put up with a lot of it. But she's certainly not. I mean, she won't shy away from ones that she likes. Or I really like that one.
Now, there's also, it's not just the lovely missus. You got these kids too. This transcontinental. I wonder how the right way of describing Gerry's life. Now, the children, is this stuff in their wheelhouse at all, or is it just too far removed from their youthful fancies?
Well, it's different depending on the kid. You know, I have 2 of my own that are 43 and 33. Then I have 3 stepkids who are Australian. Youngest is 20 years old, going to be 21. And my oldest, Matt Beckley, is a very successful Grammy-nominated producer. Right. And he, of course, hears probably way too much of this stuff.
Right.
And Joe is a photographer who took the album cover.
Right.
He's a very good photographer. And I don't know, I never really want to say, have you listened to the record? But the other day, my youngest stepchild, Indy, said, hey, we've got a song of yours on our playlist. To their credit, their playlists are a lot of kind of 70s
Wow.
and 80s singer-songwriter stuff. But I said, oh, yeah, what song is it? And it was a song called Love on the Vine from an album I think we did called Your Move many, many, many years ago. One of those where you cut 12 tunes and you might never play 10 of them again. They're just cut for the album,
That's funny.
In their listening, she kind of cherry-picked that one. And I thought, God, of all the songs, you picked that one.
Yeah, well, 20 years old. That's how old your stepdaughter is?
That one is 20, 27, and 30-year-old stepson.
Right, yeah, that's a whole different era of music. And that's the same kind of, this is a different but entirely related couple of questions here. When was the last time that you bought an album?
That's hard to pin down because I listen a lot, but I now listen on Spotify.
Sure.
I haven't, although we're trying to do a vinyl rig in both of our homes, so we've been getting vinyl stuff.
How does it work for the record to make any money to pay for itself? When people are mostly streaming stuff, are there folks who buy it on CD? Do you get a cut of streaming it as a slice of the YouTube ad revenue? How does the bill get paid for doing a record these days?
It's a very complicated process with some pretty sad elements and statistics. Our joke is, hey, you've got a million streams of your song on Spotify. Here's your check for $31. Now, it's kind of a joke, but it's not that far from the truth. The unfortunate thing is that the money that labels, and I hate to be I can't believe I'm touting the old-fashioned label system, But they used to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in developing a band. They wanted their money back, of course. You would, if you were fortunate to have success, you would be paying that all back as advances. But there is very little in streaming. I fortunately have a label that supports me. Blue Alarm has been so wonderful. This is, I think, my fifth project with them, and I'm actually compensated for doing these records. Just on a tangent, but in the same area, and that is that nowadays with listening, very, very seldom will you find younger kids that are listening to an entire album, start to finish. For you and I, Dave, it was such a part of the process,
Right.
waiting the new Beatle album or whoever you happen to be fans of. But the process of listening to at least a 20-minute side of music, that's out the window. Most kids, they can make it through a 3-minute song, but if you, God forbid, if you try and get them to sit down and listen to it, if this is 41 minutes, you're going to,
Right.
not a chance.
That's a very interesting point and seemingly really true, especially since the music is released in single form and not emphasized around albums, not to mention rock as a separate sort of related thing that you're talking about. Because
Sure.
when you stop and really look at rock music, you realize it didn't really last that long, the peak of it. It's sort of like we were in a post-rock thing. And in some ways, kind of a related, but in your own life, and then you mentioned it, but it may surprise some folks because it kind of came by quick there. There's a press release that comes with the new self-titled Gerry Beckley record, and it says, quote, America is on an open-ended hiatus from touring. Yet there is, in fact, an America tour with Dewey taking place. Explain what happened to drive this decision on your part.
Actually, that thank you for bringing that up. That should really be updated. We intentionally, at the end of last year, called it a hiatus. I was very clear that I was physically done with the mechanics of touring. I loved every aspect. I loved all the guys, but it was just physically becoming harder and harder. And we batted it all around, and we thought hiatus is the best way to word this, because if you just say retirement, then we would be spending the next few months having to explain yourself and why these decisions. So hiatus kind of left the door open regardless. We went through 6 months, of which, when my solo album was scheduled and planned and the press releases, where, yes, it's true, we were on an open-ended hiatus. But after 6 months, two things happened. One is that, and this is the good news, the phone never stops ringing. There's always a demand to see us and to hear those songs live. Because normally, if you do 100 shows a year, those are booked at least a year in advance. So the desk is filled with contracts. But in addition to having all these offers, Dewey went about 6 months. And I find that people in my profession are of one of two schools. One like myself that is like, hey, I did 53 years. I am good. Thank you all very much. I'm still going to be making the records, but I'm going to skip that very big piece of the puzzle. Dew, on the other hand, was saying, you know what, I'm a little bit at a loss. I really miss it, the feedback from the crowds. I have discovered that although that is two decidedly different avenues, if you think of Paul McCartney at 81 or whatever he is, and Mick Jagger, these people are doing, short answer is exactly what they want to do. They're out in front of the thousands of people. They love that interaction. If anything, I think I'm in the minority, because as the word spread, I found more people coming to me saying, not me, man, I don't know what I would do, So I totally get both sides.
Is this the first time that America has ever toured with just one of the original guys left in the band?
There were a couple of times for personal reasons. I was going through a divorce once for, I think, 3 shows just because I was unavailable because of circumstances. Mm-hmm. There was a medical time when we were off to South America, and at the last minute, Dewey couldn't make it. And so I did that whole tour singing 30 songs or whatever. Wow. Not ideal. But those are two that come to mind. I don't think there were any others.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of transitions in the world, and certainly stay in touch for sure, brother Gerry, singer, songwriter, performer, 10th solo record, simply titled Gerry Beckley, and always a pleasure to have you on the show. Please stay safe, man.
My pleasure. Thanks. Nice talking with you again, man.
Aloha, brother.
Talk to you soon.
Well, I tried to make it Sunday, but I got so damn depressed that I set my sights on Monday. and I got myself undressed. I ain't ready for the altar, but I do agree there's times when a woman sure can be a friend of mine. Well, I keep on thinking about you, sister golden hair surprise, and I just can't live without you. Can't you see it in my eyes? I've been one poor correspondent, and I've been too hard to find, but it doesn't mean you ain't been on my mind. Will you meet me in the middle? Will you meet me in the air? Will you love me just a little, just enough to show you care? Well, I tried to fake it, I don't mind saying I just can't make it.